So I try to bring forward the cases in the last 10 years and 20 years on video that people can see that I had communication with, I had familiarity with in the national security structure of the United States.
Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. As well, we are simulcasting live video on Facebook, on my Facebook page at facebook.com/Bernard Alex Alvarez. Anyway, we have got a really fantastic show for you today, and I appreciate you all dealing with our technical difficulties. But let me tell you a little bit about my guest who's joining me today. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. John Desouza is known as the XMan. He was a special agent for the FBI for over 25 years. During that time, he maintained a top secret security clearance. He's worked on the global war on terrorism and paranormal cases as well. During that time, John collected what we call the real X-Files. Anyway, so without further ado, let me welcome to the show John Desouza. Hello, John. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Bernard. It's great to be on with you and Trevor on Studio A, Revolution Radio. Thank you so much.
And thank you. So, John, I know you guys are, well, you're working with Neil on the new conference that's coming up. But for some of our listeners that may not know who you are and don't know your background, tell us a little bit of how it evolved. How did you get to where you are today, working for the FBI and now leaving the FBI and sharing truth?
Oh, sure. Well, when I was first, my name is John Desouza, of course, and I was working for a special agent for over 25 years. When I first joined the FBI, one of the first things that I got was cases to review that had to do with UFOs and alien visitors. And one of those cases had part of its file was made declassified today. And it's it is revealed on at FBI at vault.fbi.gov on the repository for all declassified cases in the FBI. And anybody can look it up. You just go to vault.fbi.gov and you can go to the big old tab that says unexplained phenomena. It's a giant button. You just push that, and that will open up all kinds of paranormal cases, animal mutilations, extrasensory perception, and UFOs. And you click on UFOs, and you go to that, and it will open up a group, many groups of documents.
Wow! So that was all just released today?
That was released several years ago. About 10 years ago. The FBI has been around for 120, almost 120 years now. And all these documents are right after 9/11. They started dumping all the classified cases onto the net at this area.
Okay.
And right at that area, you can you click on first group of UFO documents, and you click on page 22. And right there is a memorandum of importance, which is a document that was released by an FBI agent who said he had an informant that was an alien visitor himself. And on that document, it says about 8 conclusions that were given to him by an alien, by his informant. And the informant told him that alien visitors are coming from other dimensions beyond our time and space, and that this is all about wormholes and gateways, and that they change their own vibration in their own places where they are, and they change their vibrations to match ours, and that's how they appear here. And same thing with UFOs. That real UFOs are actually alive. They don't have anybody inside of them. They just accompany alien visitors and come to our material universe, and they spend time here doing small tasks for alien visitors. And that document also said several other things, like that alien visitors are here for peaceful purposes. They're not to attack them, because if we attack them, that'll end badly, and because of their superior technology. And told us many things, revealed several things about aliens that have since those years, because this document was released in 1947, right around the time of the Roswell crash. And so that's when all these things happened, because apparently in that year there was a great wave of UFOs all across the earth, and scientists were wanting to know what was this all about. And that's why this communication was written and why it was put out to the scientific community.
That's fantastic. And I find it very interesting that you stated that we are getting more and more, how shall we say, transdimensional visitation, because that's kind of how I am an experiencer, and mine was transdimensional. I did not see a ship floating out of the sky. They appeared before me, so to speak, and I had Laura Eisenhower. I have Laura Eisenhower come on the show about once a year, and she always says if the UFO has nuts and bolts, it's not a real UFO. It's man-made. Right. And when you said that they are alive, that really, really resonated with me, and makes a lot more sense for those people that are on the fence about what's going on out there.
Yes, Laura is wonderful, and that is true what she said. There are. When I refer to things, I'm talking about the real UFOs, the small percentage every year that turn out to be unexplainable and actually extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial in nature. And that could be just a small percentage, as small as 3 to 4% of sightings every year. But even that adds up to quite a lot. And experiencers like you and myself, we know that. We know that these are huge numbers of real UFOs, authentic UFOs that we all see. And so it's very, very important to address this phenomena. It's just increasing. It's not leveling off. It's getting greater and greater, and it's approaching a crescendo of some sort, I believe.
Absolutely. And I have Miriam Delacosta is a very dear friend of mine, and we talk about disclosure quite a bit. And one of the things that I share with her and we talk about a lot is the fact that while the government may be sharing some information, disclosure is really happening more on a personal level. It seems to be that we are going to be the disclosers, not the government. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Disclosure is never going to come through the government, because the government doesn't really have the agenda, the plan. They're not on the inside of this whole thing. There really aren't. What's going to come to us eventually, it's going to be revelation. And that's one of the reasons for it's going to be revelation from alien visitors themselves. And it's not going to be to the White House alone. It's going to be to us, to those of us who are open to this sort of phenomena directly. It's not going to be to centers of power. It's going to be to us directly, and we are going to be receiving this information, and we're going to have to deal with it when the time comes as well. Jacques Vallée told me once, government can't do disclosure because they've got nothing to disclose. All they've got is data. And it's true. And it's true. If you go to the CIA, go to the FBI, Air Force, they've got mountains of data about UFOs and about things that have gone on. And that's all they've got. There's no one in those. There's no one in Washington, D.C. that has the actual agenda that's on the inside of this with alien visitors. And that's why people who are, begging for disclosure, they're sitting in the wrong place when they're sitting in Washington, D.C. and places like that. And because that's not where it's going to come from, because they just don't have it.
Yeah. Listen, John, we have people asking for that website that you mentioned at the beginning again.
Sure.
Can you share that with me again?
That is vault, the word vault, FBI.gov.
FBI. I'm typing it for them. FBI.gov. There we go.
And then you go on that site and you look for the big old tab. There's a lot of tabs on the right side, but the big tab that matters is the one that says unexplained phenomena. Then you click on that, and that opens up all kinds of paranormal cases that have been worked by the FBI, like animal mutilations, UFOs, even JFK assassination is under that as well, I believe.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
very interesting.
And then you just click on those and see where you go on that.
So, John, you worked with the FBI investigating paranormal, I guess paranormal cases or whatnot. Can you tell us a little bit about, what was the FBI investigating while you were there? What kind of cases was being looked into?
Well, officially, I worked at the FBI. I worked counterterrorism cases. So I worked a lot of big terrorism cases over the years. Up to and including 9/11, the Unabomber. There's an old case. There was an old terrorist named the Unabomber that was around for 20 years, and many cases like that. However, I also was given various paranormal cases that I had to work on, and that I worked during some of these, even during some of these terrorism cases. One case of that, for instance, was the Indigo kids of 9/11. As a matter of fact, while 9/11 was going, actually even before 9/11 happened, there was a group of kids all over the country that were having prescient experiences of what was going to happen on 9/11. They were drawing pictures, they were doing arts and crafts, they were having dreams and visions, and all about what was going to happen on 9/11. And they told caretakers about those experiences, babysitters, school bus drivers, nannies, teachers, things like that. And so when 9/11 actually happened, some of these, there was this big campaign for, anything suspicious that happened, please report to the authorities, tell us, call into these intel centers. And so we received a lot of calls about these kids, and, FBI agents and police officers had to actually go out and interview all of these little kids. We're talking ages going as low as, like 5-6 years old, all the way up to 12 years old. And there were dozens and dozens of these cases all over the country. And when these kids were interviewed, and in every single one of these cases, and just to give you examples, the day before 9/11 happened, there was one little girl. She was on the playground. And she was, instead of playing with the other kids, she was sitting by herself in the dirt, and she was just tracing designs in the dirt. And the teacher came over to her and told her, hey, told the little girl, are you okay? How are you? Are you all right? What are you? And the little girl said, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just thinking. That's all. And then the teacher went to walk away, and the little girl pulled on her skirt violently and said to the teacher, tomorrow, stay away from tall buildings, because tall buildings sometimes fall down and they fall on people. And the teacher just pulled away from the child and didn't think more about it, except the next day, 9/11 happened. So that made her think about that, and eventually she called that in to these intel centers that were saying, see anything suspicious, report it in, please.
See and something, say something. I remember that.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And there was another little boy who was in the days before 9/11, was just doing an arts and crafts thing, a finger painting thing, and the teacher came over to him in class and said, "Wow, this is really beautiful. These two tall buildings are glowing, and it looks like you have these angels with red wings flying out of the buildings. Where are they flying to?" And the little boy said, those buildings aren't glowing, they're on fire. And those aren't angels with red wings. He says, those are people, and they're on fire and jumping out the buildings. And so the teacher, again, they walk away from some kid like that and just think it's too much sugar or whatever, and don't think more about it until 9/11 actually happened. And then they remember that, and they report it in. And so that leads to that child being interviewed. And there were many repetitions of similar experiences like that had to be investigated. And despite all the dozens and dozens of cases like this, every single one of those cases were investigated, and it was found that there was no connection to terrorism, that the child didn't, overhear some adults or, was not privy to any terrorism at all. And every single case, it was found that the paranormal answer was the only answer that was present in these cases.
Wow. And that was really, that was a time, if I remember correctly, there was a lot of this indigo phenomenon happening. We were seeing more and more children incarnating onto the planet at that time. Oh, we're on a commercial break, John. When we return, we're going to continue our discussion with John Desouza. You're listening to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. We are speaking with John Desouza today. For those of you who are listening, please be aware that Revolution Radio is one of the #1 listener-supported radio stations in the world. And if you can, please head over to freedomslips.com or revolution.radio and go ahead on over and make a contribution. Big or small, every little bit helps. As well, if you like the work that I am doing on the Just Bernard Show, as well as on social media, YouTube, and the classes I offer on my website, you are welcome to join my Patreon page. You can join the Patreon page for free, actually. But if you become a patron of $2 or more a month, you will receive a lot of exclusive stuff, a copy of my book, copy of some classes. I have a wonderful class on there, 2-hour seminar on how to connect with your higher self. Talk about getting to know transdimensional beings. This would be a great way to start that journey if that's where you're headed on your path. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's return to our talk with John. Welcome back to the show, John.
Oh, thank you, Bernard. Yes, it's great being on here with you.
So tell us a little bit. I know that the Portal to Ascension conference is in just a few weeks, and I know you're going to be one of the presenters. Tell us a little bit more about that conference that's coming up.
Oh, yeah. That's the Portal to Ascension conference, October 5th, 6th, and 7th at the Atrium Hotel in Irvine, California. Yeah, and that's going to be a tremendous conference where we're going to be dealing with UFOs, alien visitors, consciousness topics, paranormal, spiritual topics, and it's going to be pretty amazing. We're going to have a lot of the great names: Jason Quitt, Grant Cameron, Paola Harris, Jordan Sather, and it's going to be pretty tremendous conference that's coming up. I'm pretty excited for it, and I'll be doing my presentation, Real Disclosure Continued, which is it's all about what parts of disclosure are actually genuine and real that we need to continue with each other and helping each other to understand before this phenomena comes to a head very, very soon.
Oh, very, very interesting, and I like the way you said that. It comes to a head. What are you aware of? What does that mean, coming to a head? Do we feel that is something big coming as far as disclosure is concerned?
Yeah, I believe very possible that this year, even this year, we will have something connected to Revelation that will be coming forward from alien visitors. And besides that, and there's many threads of it. It's not just revelation of, okay, here's the aliens and here's what they are. We're also going to be seeing alien tech revealed and probably democratized. I mean, sent out to the people and shared with the people on large scale. So anyway, so my presentation. The presentation that I do normally all over the country has to do with bringing us all, especially young people, because we've got to move forward from Roswell. We got to move forward from these old themes that have been keeping us in the same spot for 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And so I try to bring forward the cases in the last 10 years and 20 years on video, that people can see that I had communication with, I had familiarity with in the national security structure of the United States, and that I have personal knowledge are true, authentic extraterrestrial cases. And one of them is the 1996 Tether incident. For those who know, anybody can look it up by that name, the Tether incident. Which is when NASA made a bunch of mistakes all at the same time and revealed this experiment that they did out in space with this 12-mile long tether that was conducting electricity and magnetism at the same time, and it acted as a distress signal, and all these hundreds of UFOs showed up to investigate this tether and to see what it was doing. And it was all of these perfectly formed, and this is on video because they got it on the satellite feed. Mm-hmm. And they were unable to stop people from grabbing that satellite feed and distributing it to everyone. And today, just go to my YouTube channel. You can see all of these videos. Just go to John Desouza on YouTube, and you can see all of these videos. It's all of these perfectly formed discs that show up. And all have the same little donut hole in the middle and a little shark bite on the outer edge, and they're just, and some of them are enormous in size. You can see by comparison with the cable. Some of them they're what you call motherships. They're 1 to 2 miles across in diameter, and they all show up, and they all slow down next to the tether, and they check out very carefully what's going on with the tether. Other cases that I go through is a 2009 Turkey UFO from the country of Turkey, and it's also known as the observed occupants UFO, because it's the only UFO on video that we have where you can actually see inside the UFO, and you see what looks like a couple of gray aliens right there, because that little shark bite that we were just talking about a second ago is actually a section of these disc UFOs that is clear plexiglass. That's how we describe it, but that's the best way we can describe it. It's clear plexiglass section where you can actually see inside of the ship. That's what that shark bite is, in the ridge of the disc. And so you can actually see that, and that was filmed in 2009, 2008, and 2007 also, and in Turkey, in the country of Turkey, off the coast of Turkey. And so that's one. And another case is 2011 January, the UFO, the Dome of the Rock UFO. Mm-hmm. That's known as the Dome of the Rock UFO. And anyone can see these. Again, these videos are available on my YouTube channel. And the Dome of the Rock UFO happened at 1 a.m. in Jerusalem. And when it first happened, there was a lot of panic among the people who don't want you to see these sorts of things. All of these original videos that were taken, the real videos, were taken down, and they were hidden, and they were replaced with fake CGI videos, so that the millions of people that were rushing to go see Dome of the Rock UFO, they were all confronted with these fake CGI looking imitations. And so the Great Awakening that could have happened in 2011, when this occurred, was completely stopped. It was stopped because the elite powers in control consider it very important to keep paranormal realities under wraps and to keep it controlled from people, from the mainstream. And that's what they did. That's why these incidences, when they happened, were intercepted and were stopped from people from being exposed, basically, to everyone, so that people would not see these incidences and, do that dangerous awakening that they want to avoid.
Is it fair to say, and I speak of this often on my shows, we talk about a lot of conspiracies, and a lot of the listeners are kind of into conspiracy as well, but I always say how the number one conspiracy that's been perpetuated on humanity is the suppression of our human consciousness. Do you feel it has something to do with that?
Absolutely it does, because we are kept contained in a world that is not what we think it is. It's like Morpheus said to Neo, you've been living in a dream world. And that's where we are right now. But what people don't understand is that it's not just the military and parts of government that are trying to enforce this false reality. It's also mainstream science. It's the fake news. It's all corporate news that's doing all these things. And it's not because they're a part of some great conspiracy. It's because they're just following orders. That's what they're doing. They're following orders. They're doing what they're told, because that's what they always do. And the orders, the more relevant question is, who's giving those orders? Where are they coming from? And they're coming from the elite powers in control, the central banking dynasties, these groups that have been sitting over the nations, that give the nations their orders every day. And they're the ones who are so interested in keeping the paranormal and keeping our consciousness at that low level, all occupied with low vibration things that will keep us down. And that's what they care about. That's what they want.
And it's certainly happening over the last, especially this last year has been just awful. I mean, people are literally they're like you said, they're vibrating at their lowest frequency. There's so much hatred. And not only in the United States, we're seeing it happen throughout Europe. We're seeing it happen throughout Asia. For lack of a better term, the fascist ideologies seem to be taking hold. And I just wonder if this is a part of the plan. Is it a part of the plan to divide us, to keep us enslaved? And, are the aliens going to come help us? Which I'm told they're not. We have to help ourselves. So.
Yeah, and I think this is part of helping ourselves. It's just sharing this information with each other and just alerting each other and telling each other what's really going on. And just to give you a quick, a very topical, recent example, people still think that scientists and laboratories are really helping us to get to the truth, and that's absolutely not true. We have the example of the Atacama 6-inch mummy that was revealed several years ago. And it was unfortunately, it was handed over to Stanford Science Department, and they did the deep genetic testing on it after they are on record doing the preliminary testing on this 6-inch mummy that was discovered in northern Chile in the Atacama Desert. And this mummy, anybody can Google image it, and they can see that it is something that has about 18 non-human anomalies, non-human features in it. And it has different number of ribs from human. It's a real biological creature that was alive about 60 years ago. And it had different cranium plates from human. It has different eye sockets from human. And of course, there's the size. It's very small, but it doesn't. But it's not a fetus because we have X-rays of it that show that it had dense bones and fused joints. Everything was fused. So this was something that was up and running for at least 6 to 8 years, because it's definitely not a fetus. And all of these findings were made, honestly, by Stanford Science Department as well. And they're on record. They're on record in the documentary Sirius as having made those findings. However, then they did all the deep genetic testing. It's not just the mitochondrial testing, but they did the nuclear testing. And that takes a couple of years and so forth. And so they do all this testing, and all of it's done honestly and correctly. But what happened is a couple of months ago, they came up with what we call in the law a whole cloth conclusion. Just a conclusion that was based on none of the testing, not based on science, not based on anything that had been done before. They just decided to paste on there a conclusion that said, oh, this thing, remember this alien looking thing? Oh, it's just a human female fetus after all. That's all it is. 100% human fetus. And that was outrageous. That was absolutely outrageous, because so many of these labs had been involved in this, and Stanford Science Department had promised that they would do an honest finding with this thing. They had promised Dr. Greer, who brought this thing forward in 2012. Yep. And they decided that it didn't matter. They decided none of that mattered. And this is the biggest scandal in our century, because it shows us that even scientific mainstream, even laboratories are working with fake news and all these other elements of our society to gaslight us, to give us false information, and to make us believe that we don't live in a world where there's other non-human species. That's what they're doing. And it is outrageous. It's outrageous what they did. And it's pretty evident, actually, too. If you look at it, if you just look at what they did, it's pretty evident that what they did was just create a false conclusion that they then fed to the fake news, that then fake news then put out 100 headlines all over the world that all said basically the same thing. Remember this alien-looking thing? Well, the alien-looking thing turned out to be just a human fetus after all. That's all it is.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And have there been other examples? I know some of the clips, the images you sent me show other mummified type looking beings.
Yeah. If you
the Uralian alien, is that the same one you're talking about now?
Yeah, the Uralian is also the Kyrgyzstan, Russia mummy, which is a very similar mummy to this one. It's a foot tall. It's 12 inches tall. Unlike this one's just 6 inches, but it's the Kyrgyzstan, also known as the Uralian mummy, is the one that was found in Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and it also went through a similar process where the Russian Scientific Federation authorities, the scientific authorities, they examined this thing. They did all the preliminary findings were all true, were all correct, that it's non-human mummy, it's a non-human humanoid, that it's not, and again, we're not saying that any of these things are aliens. We're just saying these are obvious non-human species. That's the important point. And so the Russian scientific laboratories all found, this is non-human, has many features. It even had that skull that looks kind of reptilian with ridges on it and so forth. And this thing they found, then they did the deep testing, and the deep testing was done honestly also, just like the preliminary findings were honest as well. But then after a couple of years of that testing, at the end, they paste on almost the same exact conclusion that they did in the Atacama mummy, which was, it's just a human female fetus after all. It's almost like it was the exact same conclusion that was just duplicated and given to them, and they just read it off, and it had nothing to do with the science that had occurred in this case. It had nothing to do with the testing that had been done, the mitochondrial or the nuclear testing that had been done. It was just a whole cloth conclusion that was just pasted on there and then fed out to the news. And then the news doesn't look at any of the testing or any of the preliminary. They just report the fake conclusion that's given. And then if you keep pulling on this thread, this is going on right now. This is going on right now, and it's gone on a lot. People now are sending me examples. They're sending me research and examples from all over the earth that apparently the reason why it's so important to the elite powers in control to keep having scientists put out these fake conclusions, it's not because there's these dead mummies all over the place. Apparently, it's because these species may very well be alive and with us here on Earth right now. That's what they're trying to keep us from finding out. Because now we have reports from northern Chile in the Atacama Desert that these mummies are very much out there, very much alive. And they live beneath the earth. They live beneath the surface. And they only come out at times when the moon is full. Same thing is going on in Kyrgyzstan, Russia as well, and in many other regions all around the earth where these smaller humanoid species, non-human species, apparently live right here on the earth. And they're beneath the surface, supposedly, and they only come out very sporadically, but they are seen. And this is all police reports, anecdotal evidence, and stories from locals on the ground, in these places where these mummies come from. Because this is going on right now. Gaia TV, many people may know, they have these examinations going forward with this Lucy mummy that they brought out, which is larger, these slender mummies with these weird shaped heads, 3 fingers and 3 toes. And there has been a tremendous amount of controversy over these lab findings, because Gaia TV knew that they got these mummies from Nazca, Peru, and the first one was named Lucy, but they have many more. They have many more that are coming out, and they are using many labs because they were very Gaia TV, which I'm partnered with, and you can go to my page on Gaia TV and you can see all the videos about the Nazca mummies, and these are mummies that have 3 fingers on each hand and 3 toes, and they're not faked. These are not faked creatures. These are real biological creatures. We have the X-rays. The X-rays show that, and some of the creatures they brought forward actually have eggs in their bosom. They actually, not the bosom, the lower part. They have eggs just contained there that were never hatched. And so as we're doing these, they're using a lot of different labs to do the deep testing on these things. All the preliminary findings, of course, these are non-human creatures. There are many non-human anomalies that you have to put forward the assumption that they are non-human creatures. But when they do the deep testing, some of these labs have uniformly come forward with the conclusions, again, that for some reason either the DNA was too degraded, we couldn't make it undetermined, we couldn't make a determination, or they just decided these are 100% human. That's it, just 100% human. No explanation. How could that be possible? There's no human that looks like this. There's no human that has these features. There's just, and the thing that Gaia TV is realizing is that these laboratories have to be licensed every year. They have to be licensed, and they cannot lose their licenses just because Gaiatidi wants to find a non-human species. So they cannot come forward with a real, true finding. That's what's going on, and that's what's happening. That's a huge, huge scandal and a huge fraud against all of us.
Yeah,
because it's just false findings to keep us gaslit, to keep us in this fake version of reality, where we're alone on the earth, and it's just not true.
And that covers so much more. As you're describing, well, I guess what we would call cryptozoology type beings that live here on the planet. So not only are we talking about different, how shall we say, organic, live, humanoid type beings living on the planet, we're also talking about transdimensional beings that are visiting us as well, and nobody's aware. Well, on the mainstream, nobody's aware of it, and they seem to do everything they can to suppress any of that, and make those of us who either experience it, believe in it, study it, or research it come off like we're the Looney Tunes,
Right, and I think both types exist. I mean, there's obviously there's obviously a lot of extra dimensional stuff going on, where a lot of these aliens are visiting from other dimensions. They're not like humans. They're not sailing around in tin cans in our space here in our solar system the way we would, because they're not human. And yeah, there's a lot of this topic is extra dimensional. That's why I wrote my book, The Extra Dimensionals, to explain all of that. But there's also another thread going on here too, which is absolutely physical and in our world and right here with us on Earth, and may have nothing to do with UFOs and alien visitors, because apparently these things that we see, these mummies, the source of these mummies may be absolutely native to the Earth, and it may be more so, maybe even more than us. These may be the actual Earthlings.
Fascinating.
And we may be the aliens as far as that's concerned.
That's always been one of my theories. John, we're about out of time, and I just would like to know if you could remind everyone about the Portal of Ascension Conference. When and where can they see you next?
Yes. Portal to Ascension Conference, October 5th, 6th, and 7th at Atrium Hotel in Irvine, California. It's going to be a huge conference dealing with all of these topics and consciousness topics and UFOs, alien visitors, and much, much more. It's going to be a huge conference. Can't wait. There's still tickets available for that, and I can't wait to see you guys out there. It's going to be tremendous. And that'll be coming right up. Very excited about that. And there's more about it on my website, johntamabooks.com. And also check out my Amazon page for my books, The Extra Dimensionals. All these topics are from my book, The Extra Dimensionals. And that's my stuff that's coming up. And I can't wait to get these conferences going.
It's going to be awesome. Great. It's going to be great. I'm sure it's going to be very, very interesting. Hopefully I'll be able to watch online, since I'm not going to be out there. I'll be working here. But thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. And I just want to let everybody know that next week we are going to have an open dialogue Q&A. And then on the 17th, somebody else from the conference is going to be joining us. Joan of Angels will be here live to speak with us on the 17th as well. Any last words for our viewers and listeners, John? What's the one thing that we can do to experience better?
The one thing we can do is we have to be open to these things. We have to have the mindset that's easier. It's easier for young people, but we all have to do it, of just being able to assume that authorities are lying to us, that they are not telling the truth. And I'm talking whether it's scientific authorities, mainstream media, the government. And we have to just be aware that the stuff that they say, you just got to assume that it's not true, and then go from there and look for better sources of information.
Find your own. Be your own researcher. That's what I always say.
Yes.
Anyway, we're out of time, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great week, and we will see you next time here on the Just Bernard Show on Revolution Radio.